I hope you all are doing well. This is Jyotsna and welcome to the second iteration of Pragati E-Vichar Literature Festival 2023 organized by Frontlist Media. Welcome you all, and today we all are gathered here to celebrate the love for literature and provide insights to audience on various subject matter that has been prevailing in society. And this year's PVLF 2023 theme is Taking Humanity Forward. Today we have very courageous personality with us. First panelist we have Tanushree Ghosh, and second we have Mohua Chinappa. And welcome you, ma'am. And it's an immense pleasure to have both of you on board for this special theme, women empowerment. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Moving ahead to illustrate this theme, we have topic the era of the empowerment women. Do we know what it means? So I think you both are the ideal panelists for this session. So I'm looking forward to having a very insightful conversation today with both of you. So first I will start with introduction. So first panelist we have Tanushree Ghosh. Tanushree Ghosh works in the technology sector in the USA, and she is also a social activist and a writer. She has a doctorate in chemistry from Cornell University and has worked at the Brookhaven National Laboratories and is an alumni of IIT Kanpur and Presidency College, Calcutta. She has written a postpartum depression, acid attack, and states globally #MeToo and a myriad of related topics and was interviewed for Reddit and the Indian Express. She is a regular contributor to several popular publications. She has served in coordinator and chapter head roles for ASHA and AID India and has affiliations with the several women's organizations and non-profits. She is also the founder and director of Her Rights, a non-profit committed to the furthering the cause of gender equality and supporting victims of gender violence. Tanushree has published a recent book Beyond #MeToo, Ushering Women's Era or Just Noise. Welcome, Tanushree ma'am, and I hope that I have introduced you well.
Yes. No, that is perfectly fine. Thank you for taking so much time on my bio. Yes, you absolutely did justice to it. It's a little bit outdated, but bios will always be outdated just in terms of positions and stuff. But the most relevant things you remembered to mention. And again, thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much. So now, next panelist we have, or last, Mohua Chinappa. She's an author, podcaster, voiceover artist, and a brand specialist. Mohua has over 15 years of experience in leadership positions such as published relation, corporate communication specialist. She also an extremely successful podcast. She has extremely successful podcast called The Mohua Show, which is available on multiple platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. In this space, she interviews artists, entrepreneurs, and individuals who are striving to create economic and social change in their environment. Mo is currently on an entrepreneurial journey as an empath. She is striving to give opportunities to people who cross her path and provide a platform for the unheard voices in society to be highlighted, respected, also organized. Mohua has recently published her debut book, Nautanki Sala and Other Stories. So welcome, ma'am. It's an immense pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. That was the perfect introduction. You didn't miss out on anything at all. So, yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
So, I've shared the topic with you all. The era. Do we know what it means? So, my since you have written especially a book on leadership, everyone has their own definition of being an empowered woman. What's your definition of women empowerment?
It's a loaded question, but a very, very good one. Obviously, it's very subjective. So, in my opinion, empowered woman is someone who can make her own choices, speak up for herself and for other women around her. Now, how does that empowerment come to be? Unfortunately, in our society, financial security and financial self-sufficiency is a route to both economic power and social power. So, to put it in very simple terms, someone who is able to make her ends meet herself, is self-reliant, has a voice, is able to use it, would be probably the ideal state definition. Now, that being said, that does not mean that women who are not earning a living right now cannot be empowered. They can obviously be empowered. Again, it's all about uh, having a way, having an avenue to make your own choices, speaking up for yourself, speaking up for other women around you, and having that liberty is really my definition of women's empowerment.
Thank you, Tanushree ma'am. So, Momo ma'am, what's your thought on this? What do you think? What's women's empowerment to you?
Well, exactly. I will resonate exactly what Tanushree has said. Women empowerment is about the ability to be financially independent. I think that's the first space where women always falter and fail, and their voices are never heard. And I speak on behalf of multiple housewives because I have been a housewife for many, many years till I got back with my career. And I dread to think about the housewives spread across India where their voice is never ever heard. So empowerment in India is multifaceted, multi-layered. I mean, it doesn't stop only in cities where women have access to education, women have access to healthcare, women have access to so many more things which in many parts of India they do not have access to. So women empowerment, we are far, far away. We are still not there at all. We're just probably just, skimming the surface of things. And I think it was fantastic. I think 2 years back when the Supreme Court recognized, the work of a housewife is equal to a man working in the office. We're still a long way. Nothing has happened since then. But I'm really hoping that for women across, they need to be financially taken care of if they, um, you know, choose to sometimes give up their career because of having a child, because of marriage, because of shifting somewhere. And a certain amount of money is put aside because without money, I don't think there can be access to good health. There can be access to, buying something for yourself, having even a voice. So women empowerment to me is money, and I think we're far, far, far away in that goal even now.
So here, Momo ma'am, you just highlighted a little bit think about what's the condition of women in India or maybe across the world. So my next question to you, that what new reforms have been made to improve the status quo of women in India?
Well, there have been many reforms, and it's very interesting. Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao Yojana, that was launched on January, 22nd, 2015, I think, in Panipat, Haryana. So the entire thing for this was to, generate awareness and also improve the efficiency of welfare services for the girl child. So the initial aim of the campaign was to address the declining child sex ratio. So if you look at it, there have been so many. I mean, now there's huge amount of campaigning that's happened where very systematically, a girl child fetus is aborted. And also in Haryana, there's a huge pandemic. There's like it's crazy because girls from different states are brought in to get married, to the men there. And as much as there've been these reforms, there's still so much of atrocities that is continuing. But yes, the government has made these things. There's also Mahilaye Haat, where women, it comes under the purview of the Ministry of Women and Child Development, and the government launched this in 2016. So it's a bilingual online marketing platform that leverages technology to help aspiring women and entrepreneurs. But again, how much of technology is really accessible to so many women across, we don't know. Especially during the pandemic, so many children had to fail their studies because they didn't have access to a mobile phone, and classes were being done, for a lot of children on the mobile phone. So there are initiatives. How much of it has really entered the country the way it should be taken forward? I have a lot of questions there. And of course, there's the Mahila Shakti Kendra that was also started in 2017 to empower rural women, with opportunity for skill development, employment. And so they can this each Mahila Kendra will provide an interface for rural women, to approach the government to avail entitlements through training and capacity. So there have been quite a few of these sort of campaigns that has happened. Working women's hostel hai. There is support to training and employment program for women, which is called STEP. There is also Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana. बहुत सारी योजना है इंडिया में, but ये हर जगह में जाओ and you will find these buses and you'll find these places जो कहते हैं कि बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ, पर उन्हीं के साथ साथ आप जाओगे मध्य प्रदेश में and there are districts there which the government doesn't talk about, and at every opportunity I try and come and bring this up to light, that there are girls there where they are made to become prostitutes and the only earning member, for the family, and the girls are as old as 10 years of age, and every passing by truck drivers pay them about 100 rupees, and the fathers and the brothers initiate them into this entire business. So while there are the trucks that are passing by that says beti bachao beti padhao, they are the same people who are actually going out there, and these are all minor girls. So yes, there have been a lot of noise. There's been a few places where there is change, but like I said right at the start, we're still really on the surface level. We haven't yet reached a space where women and empowerment are even subjects that people even in cities and even educated people kind of understand. We've been gaslighted for years.
Right. I totally agree with you. And you have covered most of the things in your answer. So over to you, Tanu ma'am. What your take on this?
Yeah, actually, I will start with adding a point to the previous question, which is that empowerment is a route to employment is an financial independence is a route to women's empowerment. But to come back to the question around, Jojnas and laws and stuff, does that mean that just having employment will make a woman someone who will be able to make choices for herself and for other women and have the voice? So, unfortunately, no, it's a stepping stone, and you will have to have a lot of cultural changes surrounding that to actually enable that mindset in the woman and the ecosystem around her in terms of what liberty is, what is right for her, what is right for her daughters, and so on. So Mohua covered most of it, a lot of the Yojanas. So this is my book Beyond Me Too. I actually dedicated a entire chapter there on laws and all the options and articles that have existed for women. When I started research for the book, I actually thought, and this was around the Nirbhaya incident and around it, that we are lacking in laws, right? Obviously, we are lacking in implementation of laws. But as I went back and I have provided comparison of feminism history in the US versus movements in India and the Yojanas that have led to anywhere from Vishakha guidelines, starting with Bhavri Devi on workplace sexual harassment, to all the way up to on programs, women's and child's development WDP programs of Sathen, of like grassroots works in Haryana, Rajasthan, fighting all kind of social evils, to very recent, which is the after Nirbhaya, the penal code modifications around, sexual assault, rape, and all those POSH, workplace harassment prevention law recently, POXCO for children, right? A lot of this exists. And in India, they have existed for a long time in terms of what is there. In fact, if you research into sexual harassment laws, which is again very related to women's safety and ultimately women's empowerment and equality, I compared with the languages in US, I compared with workplace protections in many other places, and I looked at POSH and I looked at the definitions. Our definitions are probably the most overlapping of all in terms of protecting. Then why doesn't it happen? Like Mohua said, because ultimately you need a cultural change. Ultimately, the Yojanas need to be supplemented, the laws need to be supplemented with the understanding that a woman doesn't need to be prostituted out. She is an entity of her own. A woman, girl child didn't be killed because she can also earn and be equivalent to a man child in terms of family name. All of these things comes from viewing women literally as a less and as an object or lesser object, as I call it, and as an equal human, right? So that change through fighting soft patriarchy at all levels of society, unfortunately, some awareness can be created with Yojanas, protections can be put in place with laws, but it really is a much bigger cultural transformation that needs to happen there.
Yeah.
And when that happens, only then we will really have women's empowerment at all level, financial independence for women being supplemented by their own awareness and their own identity to actually make their own choices, fight for themselves, fight for others, and really have a life where it's equal rights with men in all aspects.
So you have discussed about the prostitution and sexual harassment against women, and you have been vocal of against what is happening, atrocities against women, and also you have written a book hashtag Me Too Beyond Me Too. So my next question to you: the hashtag Me Too movement has brought a new wave in the women's life since its inception. Okay. So do you believe that it dwindles the violence against women?
Unfortunately, no. Now, the interesting thing is that when I was studying Me Too, the thing, and I really wrote a book on gender, not so much on Me Too, but Me Too is the context of cultural change needed. And I studied this with the lens of, interestingly, Me Too had a very different both breakout and then a outcome in the Western world in US versus in certain societies like India versus then other societies like Japan. So I discussed this in my book, but to sum it up, in the Western world, it was almost like, oh my God, something like this is going on. This is terrible. What reforms can we put in place? In India, it was like, well, it's great that these things are coming out. We need unity, we need voice. But very soon it was like nothing is going to happen through all of this. If you look at the case, it is not that there were lesser convictions in India and more convictions in the US because of Me Too. It's because of the mindset around gender-based violence and how tolerant we as a society have become, how desensitized we have become to the reality and the impact of it, and how we have learned to live with it. So, because of that, yes, Me Too did create in India also a lot of dialogue space. In a way, Nirbhaya was India's Me Too, even before Me Too, the Delhi 2012 gang rape. And it created a lot more of intolerance against violence to women. However, ultimately, if we look at statistics, one thing that has definitely changed is women are coming forward more after being victims.
Right.
Whether or not lesser attacks are happening on them, we have looked at statistics. It's impossible to do that judgment because it's confounded by how much of that is being, changed and how much of that was just less reporting before, how much of that is um, affected by other factors. In a nutshell, if I have to make a call, I do not think violence against women has decreased because of Me Too or after Me Too or independent of Me Too in India specifically. And I don't think that's the case either in the world. There is definitely more awareness, there is dialogue that has continued on to other areas like gender pay gap and so on and so forth. But stats don't say that women are any safer today because of Me Too than before.
Okay. So, Momo ma'am, what's your take on this? What do you think in this context?
So exactly, I will echo exactly what Tanushree has said, that, I mean, it's very difficult to really put a statistic to the number of, the complaints, because there are many people who shy away from complaining because they're very worried. And many times they have to accept it because maybe they are the earning members. But definitely hashtag Me Too brought out so much of, it was like the worm out of a closet, it was just like the Pandora's box. And there were such senior people like politicians, and there were celebrities, there were media house owners who were all fingers were pointed. And if you look at it, the MJ Akbar, there was also a complaint that was lodged by his colleague, Priya Ramani. And so it did give courage to, because I have been in the media myself, and I have been very very aware of this sort of sexism that continues unabated. And I am hoping that today things have probably changed, because I took a sabbatical for very very long. And I do believe that this is very selective, selective outcry that happens in rape cases in India. Because unless it's like really out there in the media, and unless it's so heinous that you don't know how to react to it, only then we take on to the to social media now, which has become accessible to everyone. So if you look at the recent case of Aftab and this girl Shraddha,
Right.
and so it is so sad that people were talking about religion, forgetting the fact that this girl probably did not have the ability to go back and tell her parents that maybe her relationship was failing, because it was a live-in relationship. We've also had politicians who have come out and spoken about that it is wrong, you must get married, you must be in the way society has put out rules for you. So I mean, hashtag me too तो चलेगा, बहुत सारी लड़कियां शायद they may not be able to have the courage to report about it. And I mean, if you look at Sajid Khan, I think there was he had he was questioned. I think quite a few film stars had come out and said that he had said the most obnoxious things, to some of the aspiring actors, and he had stripped in front of them, and he had asked them to hold his private part. But he was again chosen for Big Boss, and how in India none of us even. How we did not take out a morcha. How is it that we did not stop watching that program? We continued.
Right.
So, I mean, just the entire. So, I think, as a country, we're only bothered if it happens within the four walls of our own home. And we have this constant habit कि दूसरों के घर पे कोई लड़ाई हो रही है, झगड़ा हो रहा है, if a woman is being beaten up, we will not go and intervene, you know. And the more and more development is happening because people are moving into cities and they're all leaving, leading very isolated lives.
Right.
And so I'm sure in the case of Shraddha, she must have seen all the red flags, and she probably did not have the courage to go back. It was an interfaith relationship. B, she was living in. She would not have had the courage to go in and speak. When is it that we will not make women sorry to open up and talk about their problems? I don't know when that will happen.
Yeah,
And
And
if I can add a few
yeah,
points here, really, I don't think we even care when it's in the confines of our own world, our own four walls. I think you made a very good point, Mohua. Gender issues in India have only mattered when they're sensational. Inciting incidents cause tremendous protest, and then we are eventually desensitized. My point on Shraddha is the matter here is not that she was cut into 35 pieces. That happened after she died. The matter here is she was a victim of domestic violence, and we have a culture in which domestic violence happens.
yes,
In a survey, it showed that most Indian men think it's okay to hit their wives. After pandemic, there has been tremendous incidences. There were incidences out of Kerala where the entire family was, portraying perpetrating domestic violence on a woman, and there was loss of life from suicide, from many different things. The issue here is it does not matter that she was cut into 35 pieces. That is the sensational aspect of it that happened after she died. What matters is that shouldn't have to happen for domestic violence to be a problem that we care about. You know, that's just my thought that I wanted to add here.
I so agree with you, actually, Tanushree, and I will take a little more time on this and say that what, there were so many people who were talking about how Shraddha should have not been with Aftab, how she
Yeah.
should have thought about it, how she should not have been in a live-in relationship, how she must should have listened to her parents.
right.
I mean, really, your
That,
body has been chopped into 35 pieces, and what are you talking about?
Right.
and exactly that's the problem that people think that the domestic violence here only happened because it's interfaith and live in. There are thousands of cases every day where married couples of the same faith. There's a movie that came out, Darlings, and I wrote on that on Women's Web. I don't agree with the entire portrayal of that in the end, but I do agree that that is how it happens. There is unaddressed problems in which men think it's okay to take out on women, on the physically, on the strength difference. And I have had statistics in my book also because there are counter arguments that have been provided by men's right movement that men are victim of violence. Not that they are not. They are also sometimes victim of emotional and physical violence. But when you match the statistics, there is no comparison. And in most of our homes in the society, same faith marriage, not marriage, same faith, girlfriend, boyfriend, interfaith, doesn't matter. It's a question of a violence perpetrated on based on gender-based violence, domestic violence that we are okay with, unless it leads to something terrible.
Right. I'm absolutely agree with both of you just said. So my next question to just relate to this the responses, we see many women giving up and succumbing to the misogynistic behavior and even advocating for it to the other women. So what's your take on this, Moa ma'am?
Well, I think women sometimes are forced because even at home they are probably told that you shouldn't do this. I mean, I know of so many women who want to come out of their abusive marriages, but they will always tell you that if he's not beating you every night and he's probably not coming back, and if you're not being thrashed every night and it's once in a while when he's getting drunk, please learn to hold on. So women need to know that you need, like my book actually, Nautanki Sala and 15 stories that I'd written about, and a blurb in that is for a woman to be able to confide. We can't even confide sometimes among our own friends, and that needs to change. Because honestly, I think all of us right now on the panel, three of us are women, and we've all faced some sort of violence, either emotional or physical, at some point in our lives, you know. But yet, after this talk, when we meet up, I don't know how many of us would really have the courage to say, you know what, I went through this. What do you think I should do? So, women need to know that we are in this together. There is no way that you can isolate a case and say, okay, you know what, Shraddha is not my daughter. Nirbhaya was not my daughter. I mean, unless it's so heinous, like how it's happened for Shraddha. There was another girl recently who was, the man took on to social media and he slit her throat. And he said that, because of infidelity.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, if we can't come together, how are we even going to address such a humongous issue? And and for me, in this entire conversation about women empowerment, it is time for us to also talk about lesbians in the queer community. I've gone out for a lot of get-togethers where there's the pride things that happen, and conversations. I've been for panels and we don't find lesbian women coming there. It's the gay men who are mostly there on all these panels. So please don't forget that this is, if we come together, trans women, lesbians, women, we will have such a huge voice together. And it's time for us to recognize that all of us are facing similar sort of challenges and issues.
Yeah. Thank you, Mohua ma'am. Well put. So, Tanushree ma'am, what's your take on this?
See, there are many aspects in which I absolutely agree with Muwa that the gender statement always gets segregated with other identities. And we fight against each other based on, caste, class. And, in US, there is now this race, white woman versus black woman. I'm not saying intersectional identities are not important, but I think that gender is a very important statement to unify behind. So some of this misogynist, first of all, this makes me very, very sad sometimes when I see that a woman judge has given a judgment on certain things in terms of what a woman's character should have been, or it was out of like India a few months back, where like whether touching a skin, if something like that hasn't happened, if it has happened over a dress, is it sexual assault or not? I get very sad when I see that in US in Roe v. Wade reversal and abortion rights, a lot of women support that, and I history has this many times where even during the suffragist movement and women's voting right, a lot of women felt that women should not have voting right because that will affect and take away from their families. Lot of this obviously is very patriarchal conditioning. You are taught to believe certain things. Some of it is also this symptom, for a lack of a better word, which we see in ragging, which is मेरे साथ हुआ था तो उसके साथ भी हो रहा है तो उसको क्यों नहीं झेलना है, right? We see a lot of this in mother-in-law saying like, you guys have it so easy now, like of course you have to deal with it, I dealt with much more than that, right? Some of it is, this is the reality, I know this is what I've been conditioned to, but it is heartbreaking, it is very damaging. I think that sometimes I go on social media and I will see a certain post and there are so many women comments on the character, like, whether it's Malaika Arora, in what kind of kapre you are wearing, to Alia Bhatt, where are you pregnant before, whatever. I don't remember the exact timeline or the issue there, but I know there is this social media post showed up on how many months after marriage Alia Bhatt had a baby. So many women commenting on how characterless she is, how this is, makes me very, very sad. I think it creates a disastrous situation. I think we have to fix it. We have to get women on board with us as one tribe, with representation from all the intersectional stuff, and ultimately band behind gender, band behind women.
Right. So since we all have been being vocalized about the various issues of society, so feminism is something, it's a burning topic nowadays, right? So my question is, are you in favor of feminism? Is it necessary to prevail over the power of feminism to conquer a patriarchal society? Mahua ma'am.
Of course. That is a given. It is very, very important. And feminism is not about bra burning. And I have written this article just recently, because men come and they actually ask you atrocious questions like, oh, you're a feminist, so you're the bra burning type. I mean, excuse me, are all my issues, will get over if I burn my bra? No. Feminism is talking about equality. If I
Right.
have the right, to, if a man has public space, I don't think I have the courage to walk, in a city all alone at night and go across to buy myself. I don't smoke, but if I were to smoke, to go out there and buy a packet of cigarette, I don't think a woman can do it on her own. So what are we talking about? Of course, feminism is it's needed for progeny, for younger girls to come into a world where they will know that they are not, marginalized because of their gender. And yes, we need to talk about equality. If we cannot occupy public spaces, if we are catcalled, if we are fear raped, and there was this, I remember I had written about it, and this boy who was running, after work, from in Delhi, in Noida, and he said there was a guy who was a social media influencer. He said, "Why don't you come in my car and I'll drop you?" He said, "No, I'm running actually to apply a job in the army, and I'm trying to just get my stamina and uh, my strength in running really, really good. So thank you so much for the offer, but I will go home and have dinner with my brother." And of course, everybody sang paeans of, like, and it's fantastic. I mean, for somebody to be so hardworking, he works in McDonald's, and then after that, he's running back home to practice to take up a job in the army. Can a woman do it? Can she run in Noida at night at 11 o'clock at night if she wants to apply for the army?
I
Have you asked that question? No, she can't.
no, she can't. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, people think that I'm in rage when I talk. Yes, I am in rage because, if today we are talking about so much of development, technology is like, I got back my career with technology. If I had not started writing because I'd given up work and I was managing a home and hearth and everything and raising my son, and then I realized that the same position at which I'd quit my work, nobody was going to take me back again. So I started, and technology is there, today. And but even for a rape victim, she has to think 2 times, 20 times to go in and lodge a complaint, because the first questions will be, "Oh, why did you find yourself there? Excuse me." You know, people will ask her, "Why did you have to go out at night? Why is it this that तुम भिड़ गई वो मर्दों के साथ? क्यों तुमने उनसे बात किया?" They forget, they forget to focus on the real problem.
Right.
They make the woman the problem. So that, of course, needs to change. For God's sake, yes. Grow up, men, and you need to know that women are out there now, whether it means burning their bras or burning their, petticoats or burning whatever. They need to know that we are asking for our equal space in public places, safety for ourselves, health for women. So
Yeah.
many people, women are not allowed to talk about their periods. They use words like pee, they use words like chums, and I also used it for so long. We hide our tampons. We don't want to talk about it if our marriages have failed, if our children don't do well. Like, the entire onus of your home, your everything, respect, everything falls only on the shoulder of the woman. That
Right.
needs to change. For sure, feminism needs to get way more stronger than what it is right now. And I for sure will be writing more and more about all of this.
Yeah, and my wishes to you that you will be, provoking people or urging people to do something and good for the society. Yeah, thank you so much, Momo ma'am. So over to you, Tanu ma'am. What's your take on this?
Absolutely. I mean, I will answer this with something that was a quote from a feminist leader. I don't remember. I saw this question and I looked up. I have written in my book about the different waves of feminism, definition of feminism, how it was reworded for very well designed political agenda into something where feminists are family destroyers or stuff. Oxford defines feminism something in the line of advocacy for women under the belief of equal rights for every human being. So the quote, this lady says that I have been a woman for most of life as my life as I can remember. So not be on my side would be pretty stupid. So of course I'm on side of feminism because I'm a woman, but even if I would have not been, I absolutely would have been because it is talking about equal rights. And this becomes most obvious. I mean, Mohua already talked about all the things we go through and what we are lacking. But This becomes most obvious and ridiculous when I talk to my daughter. When she was 3 or 4 years old, she would say, "Are boys and girls same, mama?" And I'd be like, "No, they're obviously different gender wise." And it's like, "But are they same? Are they equally strong? Do they have can they do the same things?" Like something in her kid life. And if I would say no, she would say, "Why not?" And I still haven't found the answer to why not. Why should some members of human race have lesser rights than other members of the human race? And
Hmm.
as long as this injustice exists, there obviously will be in favor of feminism. Looking into definitions, I have wrote an entire chapter on men's right movement, how feminism is defined through that, what are the arguments against feminism. But at the very basic level, all we are asking for is not to take over the world, not to break families. If that is happening in some cases, there are side effects for very valid equal rights ask that we have to ask for. Otherwise, there is discrimination, there is abuse, there is subjugation, and there is gruesome atrocities. So, not being a supporter of feminism, being a woman, uh, would be stupid. Like this activist said, that if I have been a woman most of my life, it would be very stupid for me to not be on my side and not advocate for that. Uh, the last thing I want to say here is gender has evolved as a spectrum. And, it's not that it hasn't been there, but it is. It is really more a movement or a ask for equal rights for everyone anywhere on the gender spectrum based on, what they feel, what they associate with, what they do. And Moa made a very good point that even in very small things, I mean, what happens to you in terms of if you want to do something later at night, want to have the same freedom. I mean, my brother, who's like 18 years older, younger than me, would have to accompany me to go somewhere at night, right? That is the reality. And you talked about how women are questioned. It doesn't even have it something to do with her being a victim of sexual assault or something. I know of two cases, one of them being my sister in a city like Bangalore, where their car was in an accident because they were test driving a rental car and my sister was driving and someone came in the front and uh, broke a signal or something and got hit a truck or something. So the damage is to the truck. Police station, the first question that is asked is, why were you letting a woman drive? You know, what
Hmm.
is going on? Does she have a license? Has she driven before? Right. Similarly, there are many, many other things. I have an activist friend, and this again in Bangalore. And I say that is because just imagine if this is Bangalore, then what exists in the deep in pockets of several different states in India where that is not that progressive, right? This is the cyber hub, the shiniest part of India. This person was asked, why was she wearing a jeans? You know, now, if that is the reality, we have to fight for our rights. It does not give me any happiness that I have to wake up and protest about, and write about why was this woman murdered? Why is this kind of assault happening? Why are there social media comments on a woman's character? I would rather I don't have to fight for it. I rather that would be obvious. Like my daughter says, why not? But given our reality, of course, I'm in favor of feminism. I mean, that is what I said in terms of misogynistic women's behavior, how hurtful it is. I do not understand why women are not, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have touched upon many nuances of women empowerment, sexual harassment, feminism. So my last question from both of you, that what has changed so far in the era of the empowered women in comparison to the present with the past? So more man.
I think the percentage of women-led startups has definitely increased, from 8% in 2014 to 13% by 2019, and I think this is fantastic. Many women are becoming entrepreneurs today, and the number of women-owned businesses in India has increased by 20% over the past 5 years. So I think I am huge. I'm hugely happy when I see more women coming forward and breaking the glass ceiling. I take it as a personal victory, and I'm sure we're on the right path. And I'm only optimistic because I know that the younger generation is definitely going to not tolerate a whole lot of stuff that I did. And it's going to continue to change. And I would like to just add, to what Tanushree was saying, that I forgot to add one point, that for very long, I have been trained to not dry my undergarments outside. I've been trained to dry my undergarments inside my bathroom. And it is washed at night, and I dry it and I switch on the fan so that it dries up. Because, you know, I must feel shy if my undergarment is put out in a public space for many people to see. So we have a long way. But like I said, that if there are so many more startups, if there is, so many more women-led initiatives. I mean, on social media, you find so many groups of people who've started, online platforms for women and women entrepreneurs. I think we are on the right path. A few more tweaks and changes, a few many more women leaders, at the top level. And I'm sure it's a matter of time when we will be shoulder to shoulder with men.
Right, right. Again, agree with you. So, Tanu ma'am.
I think that Moha touched upon all of the points. I mentioned something earlier when I was talking in Me Too. One thing I definitely do think is changing for the good is when women were previously sexually assaulted, it was a matter of shame and it was a matter of life and death. Bollywood portrayed like if that happens to you, you have to commit suicide. There is no other way. Now I have definitely seen that even with threats of, videos getting made and, explicit and implicit threats to honor, women are coming much more forward. Mothers are bringing their daughters forward to register cases when things like this have happened. I definitely think that is a great step. We have to separate honor from a crime that has happened against you. And eventually that will lead to this, this very interesting thing that actually Mohua says is a small thing, but not. I actually wrote a story in Women's Web about this, about undergarment. My mother-in-law till date, and maybe even my mother, if there is woman's undergarment, it has to be covered with a towel, right? All of this comes from the fact of associating women's honor and women's sexuality in a way as our only value that has to be either preserved and hidden, or like, uh, fought for honor killings and all of that. So I do think that the concept around that is slowly changing, whether it comes to periods and shame and like, women's sexuality. I do see a lot more dialogue definitely in the urban spaces about why can't I do this, uh, and that is good. I think that that is all positive change, and that is really what cultural movements can lead to. And honestly, in a way, my hope and my faith is those would be more long lasting and effective for women's equality than laws and yojanas, because ultimately you have to change the mindset. So those are positive changes, and hopefully we are on the right track. Obviously, I'd like to see a little bit more in terms of specifically with women not going after other women's characters and like, stuff like that, especially it's urban women with education and access to social media and so on. But other thing, obviously, Muma touched upon this. This is very big. Obviously, women are coming out in much, much more numbers in terms of employment in all different sectors, right? That is definitely a very welcome change. And she talked about startups and so on. So, yeah.
Thank you, Tanu ma'am. And I must say that having both of you today in a panel, it's the most amazing thing happened. And this session is very, very provocative and edifying for me. And I just got very good answer. And I feel like every woman can relate to your answers today. And I love so much because there are so many things that can readily we can relate to. Just Mom ma'am discussed about, it's a very small thing. You have discussed about the sexual harassment. You have discussed so many things about it, and we need to be vocalized about everything today because women are not asking too much. They're asking for just equal rights. So yeah, thank you so much, Tanushree ma'am, Mohua ma'am, for coming today and joining us to this very beautiful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Thank
having me
you.
here. And thank you, Tanushree. And I look forward to reading your book. And thank you very, very much.
Thank you, and have a good day.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you also for giving me the opportunity, Mohua. Getting to know you, interacting during this panel was excellent. And Josna, thank you for the opportunity. I enjoy this conversation. This is in a way, our life's work, hopefully, and hopefully girls and women listen to this and yeah, take something away from it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohua ma'am. Thank you, Tanushree ma'am. Have a
Okay.
good day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.